Folks, since we cannot learn from the future, but we can learn from the past, learn the past, learn history, all kinds of history, Holocaust, United States, or anything else, because that's the only thing we can learn from to impact the future.
You know, we're not interested in making people suffer or make them sad, but we want to warn them for the future that, you know, try to prevent this happening. That's why we're here, and that's why Holocaust Remembrance is so important. I'm really doing this eyewitness account because, first of all, I want to honor my mother, the 6 million who perished, and also because I feel that you need to know what happened, because as you mentioned there, that sometimes people say that it didn't happen. I wish it hadn't, but you know it did, and this museum is full of things to prove to you that it has happened. And I just want so much for my children and grandchildren to be safer, and I just pray for that. So that's my reason for being here, and I thank you very much for coming and listening to us, and I hope that this will remain with you also.
You should not be a bystander when you see injustice in your own communities, when you see bullying, when you see scapegoating, prejudice against people who may be different. Don't just stand by and say, I'm just a little person, I can't do anything. That's not right. I think what each individual does really does matter. And the museum's logo is what you do matters, and I really believe that. And I try to live that way because I think that I continue working here because I would like to tell people like you all that how important it is that you should be informed about what goes on in the world and in your community, and that you should be active and see whether you can make the world, a better place where violence is not used as a means of settling problems. So I'd like you to remember that.
When you leave this place, the most wonderful institution of education, the Holocaust Museum, look at the world around you. Don't worry about a race or a religion. You see a human being that the Lord in heaven created. And let's be there for each other.
We all make mistakes, but unless we learn from them and we learn history, we tend to repeat them.
Do not be indifferent. When you see something that is bad, react. Don't turn away. And I think that should be, in my mind, the most important lesson for the kids and for everybody, for that matter.
Education, education, and education. Because they took that away from me, and I miss it for all my life. There are so many things that I would enjoy and know if I would have the education. And they did not let me do that. They took that away from us. And that's like they would take my arm from me.
And I was hoping that the Shoah, the Holocaust, would be the last tragedy on this planet, but it's not. And I see lots of young people here, and I always say, try and choose a profession where you can help this planet rather than let it go. And the words of the director of our museum is always, stand up, don't stand by.
Now I say that tolerance and acceptance is not enough. We must be proactive and fight vigorously against anti-Semitism, racism, and all other types of hatred in this country and everywhere else in the world. In many places in the world, this hatred stirred into violence as you know very well from your newspapers, massacres, civil wars, and genocide. We must not ignore these and let our leaders know that they must not ignore these either, and that we need to do something to stop the violence and what is going on. It's unacceptable completely.
I just want you to remember something to make sure that we never have a Holocaust again.
A wise man once said, the Holocaust was not a childhood disease. Having it didn't immune humanity from repeating it. President Kennedy was quoted to say, the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in time of need kept their silence. For your sake, for the sake of our nation and the values on which we stand, for the sake of your children, don't reserve those places. Thank you.
Most of us cannot have any influence over the world at large, but we can each do individual things. And I am here because individual people stepped out of their comfort zone and did things to help. And I think we can all do that. We can all do deeds to help one person or family, and I think we should.
My big thing is hatred gets you nowhere, it gets you a Holocaust. So stand up to a bully and don't let he or she get away with it. Because if we don't stop it, it will continue forever. It's as simple, you can look in your own neighborhood, and then if you have that custom of doing that, you will always think about it. You can't be silent when you know that something is really wrong.
It took me a very, very long time in my life to be able to talk about my very early experiences, because it was very painful, which is one of the reasons I do it, because I hope that no other child has to go through some of what I had to go through in my earliest youth. I also speak because 6 million of my people were forever silenced. So I have just one little voice to speak for some, just some of those, so that they did not die in vain. Above all, I look to you because you are our future, and we're so lucky, because I've met many of you and you are dynamite. I love the fact that you are interested in justice and fairness for everyone. I love that. And that you're willing to stand up against injustice and not be a silent bystander.
We need to learn from this horror in our history. We cannot undo the atrocities of the past. But besides remembering, we have to take action to confront hate. When we see injustice taking place, we have to do something about it. We cannot be onlookers. We have to be sensitive to each other, and we have to take care of each other. Now, why do I volunteer in this museum? People ask me, how can you do this over and over? How can I not? Giving tours to our visitors through our permanent exhibit hopefully teaches them what hatred and prejudice can do to people.
I like to tell about my experiences because that's the only memorial to an extended family. My mother was one of 8. My father was one of 3. There's nothing left of them. There's nothing to remember them with, other than the fact that I speak to you and tell you about it. My own experience have taught me that prejudice is wrong,
especially when aided and abetted by one's own townspeople and neighbors, out of jealousy and greed.
Listen to somebody else, because everybody has something to offer to somebody else. You'd be surprised how many times we're down in the dumps for one reason or not, and you just feel you have another soul.
What we can do is to raise our voices every time when we see bullying or see discrimination, and be aware of propaganda.
So both in Europe and the United States now, I find language that I find hurtful and upsetting. And in Europe, it's sort of sometimes as if they had forgotten what they went through. And here, I think we should also remember the language we use, the sentiments we express that might be hurtful to others. So this is what I'm leaving everyone with: tolerance, sense of the importance of human spirit, and goodwill to all men.